Good evening, everybody. Scott Stevens here with my twice a week show titled Another Perspective, where I get to occasionally venture away from some of the topics that have been kind of dear to me over the last 20 years or so, that 15 of those outside of media, and then prior to that in media, and you're kind of stuck to a narrative. You're absolutely confined and inside of a box of those things that you are assigned to speak of, even though in weather I did have pretty good latitude, but I still, once you become aware of, some of the things that are going on, you find also those limits that you're allowed to broach and speak of. So that's kind of the beauty of this additional half-hour show, where I can talk about some of the things that I see happening out there, and I just want to be able to expand on. Some of them have been in the news lately. Some of them have not been. But either way, I think there's things that we need to talk about. Good to see you guys coming on there. Robin, hello. Have a great evening. I hope it's a good Wednesday evening out there, certainly in the Rockies. We're having a nice day. Sun setting over here, so I had to draw the curtains today and turn on the artificial lights. And let me tell you, I look better in the natural light than this stuff. So we'll go with that. All right, let's start with this, and we'll call it Reclaiming Your Point of View. We've been fed a series of stories, and we've, either digested them or we've resisted them. Either way, there's this constant battle for your attention, for your point of view, for your sight. And then once they get something inside of your sight, inside of your attention, then they can begin to sculpt and shape how you think. And this, in my eyes, is something that is important for us to begin to pull back. So we'll kind of talk about this, and then how we can, either gently or by the back of our head, as our parents would drag us around, bring us into a different point of view, a different perspective. So here's where we go. We're going to be kind of quick today. We'll start with this. And if you saw my show number 36 talking about news and propaganda, this just kind of is a throwback to that, to get you, some connecting into this, that there are 1,500 newspapers, 1,100 magazines, 9,000 radio stations, 1,500 TV stations, 2,400 publishers, owned by three corporations. Three corporations. That is where the media has now been concentrated to. We are truly at the apex, the top of the pyramid, where that little bitty, group of people owns and controls a lot of the discourse, a lot of the stories that are shared throughout this country. And as I said in that show, the media aims to be your mentor, your guiding light, your greatest intelligence, meaning they want to think for you, so you don't ask those questions that are difficult. Yet we are more than that. And we know that inside. Whether you know this or not, sooner or later, each and every one of us will have an experience, so that we will come to realize that we are more than what we believe. We are more than what we know. That is a foundation for going through life, but yet we are more than that. And so let's step back and kind of gaze at what may be coming. Over the summer, we had the riots, we had the fires, we had that bit of chaos. And part of me senses, feels, can see how that was a beginning, a dry run, a prelude for what is to come. So compared to last October, where things were far more tranquil, it appears as if chaos is emerging just in every direction one looks. Throw a topic out there, any topic, and see how that one subject has changed in the past 12 months. From finance, from education. Kids don't even, I can't even say that. Kids don't go to school with the carefree attitude that they used to. It's a whole different routine, and so many parents are now at home teaching their children via remote distance, or listening to the kids in a Zoom call or whatever multimedia experience that the teachers and school districts have set up for the kids. So in some ways, parents are now seeing, hearing, listening to the lessons that the kids were in previous times getting behind these closed doors. So chaos in many ways is emerging in just about every direction one wants to look. So it is possible to feel so much that you never really know what kind of human being you are. If you're filled with monsters or love or pain or chaos, I don't know what to make of who I am, but I'm still waiting and nearly bursting for someone who can. There is a great potential, a great number of people who are approaching this time not really knowing who or in any regard what they are. Are they the sum of their feelings? Are they their thoughts? Are they their job? Or are they their relationship within the family? A son, a brother, a father, a mother, daughter, a grandfather. We've taken these subcategories and made them our own identity. And so, as one of the persons that's on our team here at Metadime had a friend who recently went through a COVID experience, and it was a profound change in her life. And the one thing that she came out of this and was read to me was what she was told is, this is not happening to you. This is happening for you. And this simple sentence, this simple point of view should be how we reframe all that is happening in the world. That this isn't to punish, although there may be that aspect, nor is it to reward, although that is true as well. But it is to affect some form of transformation, some form of change. And if it is to change you, then it's going to change how you think. It's going to change how you view the world. It's going to change how you interact, first of all, within yourself, in your subjective, in your inner worlds, but then that ultimately will reflect outward into our outer relationships. These experiences are happening for us. And then there was a show last night that we happened to be watching. Very interesting show called Raised by Wolves, and it's on one of the streaming services. And as we got towards, over the past 2 weeks, been watching an episode every now and again. It is about an AI technology which is charged with raising a new colony of humans landing on another planet. And you've got these two, a mother and a father, both protectors of the children. Of these children, which were their cargo, their charge, their lesson, they're programmed. And as they have gotten further into this experience, one of them stated to the other AI parent that I only know what I am programmed to believe, which is absolutely true. And you would expect that of a machine learning, of an artificial intelligence. But what was curious, as these raising of the children, as the years wore on, then this AI was becoming aware enough because of the experiences, because of the wisdom of living, of experiencing this charge, this mission statement, that they came back and said, I'm experiencing impulses not dictated by programming. That, in my eyes, is what 2020 has brought all of humanity, that we are experiencing impulses that have not been dictated by the programming that we have been given. So what that arrives is, you've got to integrate those impulses, identify where those impulses are coming from. Is it from media that you're having a reaction to, or is it a reaction from a spouse or information from a spouse? And we're going to expand this into something called cognitive dissonance. Some people hold a core belief that is very strong, and that when they are presented with evidence that works against that belief, the new evidence cannot be accepted. It creates a feeling that is extremely uncomfortable called cognitive dissonance. And because it is so important to protect that initially held, that core belief, they will rationalize, ignore, and even come to deny anything that does not fit within that initial core belief. And we can reflect that back to the programming that has been given society. We have been taught norms of how to live, either reinforced, refined, or made more grotesque, more base, if you will, by parents and by media. Media has done a really good job of sharing what they believe humanity should be. And it is a very destructive image that we willingly digest or ingest with the consumption of the media, especially Hollywood movies. So This is why people tend to get upset when you challenge what they hold most closely is this cognitive dissonance, mental conflict that occurs when beliefs or assumptions are contradicted by new information. The concept was introduced by the psychologist Leon Festinger, and he lived from 1919 to 1989. This came to the forefront in the late 1950s. He and later researchers showed that when confronted with challenging new information, most people seek to preserve their current understanding of the world by rejecting, explaining away, or avoiding this new information, or simply by convincing themselves that no conflict really exists. And this is kind of like a segmentation. You can have this experience, and trauma can be a part of that. You can have this traumatic experience that is so out of anything else that you've ever experienced that you have to set it aside. And that is part of programming. So when new information needs to be integrated, then the time has arrived to expand one's point of view to accommodate this new reality. It's like coming home and you've been to the doctor with news, good or bad, that you've got to adjust to that new reality that has been delivered. And so this can even be taken a step further. And the Matrix kind of gave a little story on this. It was named in the after effect as the Agent Smith effect. In the movie The Matrix, Agent Smith has the ability to enter any body at any time. And that often happens when the Matrix is threatened by Neo. This scenario is a reflection of our real world. For example, you're having a conversation with a friend and everything is fine until you mention something like 9/11 was an inside job. Now watch what happens. Up pops Agent Smith to replace the person that you were just having that conversation with, to attack you. And he attacks you because all truths then threaten the Matrix. Most people have had the Agent Smith Matrix programming since birth. How would we know otherwise? Unless you were raised in a place outside the Matrix. In one of these cultures where Western media, where the news system, the propaganda hadn't been saturated into our heads, eyes, ears, and nose since birth. So most people have had this programming since birth. These programmed people become the guardians of the Matrix, protectors of the code, the police of the mind control, and enforcers of indoctrination, which holds together the false concept of the reality, just like super glue. So, how do we integrate those things that we have seen this past year, those test runs, the bell in the distance, and then you're wondering, is that event drawing closer and closer, or is it receding? Or even more importantly, what is ringing that bell that I now hear? Is that commotion? Is that smoke in the distance? What is that is arriving? So next comes the reveal. And this is the beauty or the curse of Octobers. Now, life doesn't just happen to you, it happens for you. Back to the lesson from that COVID survivor. How far, and this poses a question on the grander picture of what is happening on Earth right now. How far are you allowed to go to fix the global problems? When does the cost of the cure become too great? This is what is happening behind the curtain. Fixing the problem of overconsumption, fixing the problem of pollution, fixing the problem of overpopulation. How do we fix those problems? And at what point is the cost of the cure become too great? Who gets to decide? Who gets to ride that fine, fine moral line between when is what is happening too much? Because anyone that is curious about these things can see and understand that we're not going back to October of last year. That's not going to happen. Even if a vaccine rolled out tomorrow, that's not going to happen. The promise may be there, and that might be just to lure us a little bit farther across the bridge. That bridge that has dynamite set on one side or the other. Either we get to the other side not knowing where the other side holds for us because we're shrouded in this fog of not knowing, this fog of war, this fog of chaos. We can't see what's over there, so we have to trust those that have been programming us all of our lives, or not. Order out of chaos. Is it possible to view the unfolding events from the higher perspective, or must we only view them from ground level? So, if we look at this, an old Middle Ages kind of art, and up above there has to be this deity, this power, this awareness that knows all, that has its own outcome, its own plan, its desire to see progress, to desire to see evolution, desire to see us home, versus just seeing what the senses can reveal to us, what the eyes can see, what the ears hear, and then using our own mental and intelligence capabilities, or not using them in the case of cognitive dissonance. Which viewpoint can we assume? Is it even possible to imagine, to place ourselves above and to see that maybe all of this chaos is an opportunity for humanity to break free or to be enslaved? And what would be then the dividing line to separate the outcomes from these two potentials? And maybe if we're dealing with timelines and different realities, maybe there are many, many potentials that will all come together or be fractured from this experience that we are all headed through. So I had to look at luck. Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. So if we look at this from the magician behind the curtain that no one shall see just yet, the chaos, they believe they are prepared to manage, to take us across that bridge to whatever resides on the other side. Are we willing to go there not knowing? So what is luck but an opportunity? An opportunity for those that pull the strings and know that there are those that do pull these strings on this planet that we may never know their names. It's possible, I suppose, that we couldn't even pronounce their names if we're dealing with a dimensional issue. What is luck? Luck is but an opportunity for those that pull the strings and for others to cut those ties that have bound us. But then I've got to ask the question, can you even see the strings? And if you can't see the strings, then you won't know where to cut. You won't know what has you tied up, what has you bound, what is holding you to them, what is holding you to their outcome. Can we see that? I know we can feel it, but will we recognize it when it's finally revealed? Everything we've experienced up until now, up until this, what are we, October 8th, 7th right now, is but a rehearsal for what is to come. All the experience about COVID, that has been a huge learning lesson, a huge learning experience for all of us. I don't care where you are in the system, whether you're in the medical, law enforcement, education, it doesn't matter. We have learned a lot by this experience about each other, but also about the system in which we live. Lockdowns. Interesting how there are some nations which are aggressively locking down and not even allowing some people even more than 2, 3, 5 kilometers specifically beyond their residence. And this without an outbreak in place. We've played with universal basic income, where we become almost true wardens of the state and dependent on this money, on this magic money theory. This modern monetary theory is what it is, MMT. And we've lost our ability to gather, to talk amongst each other, to organize, to share our skills and our ideas and our concepts of what we can become as human beings with each other. That can only be done across a digital medium. Limited our travel, if not outright, simply by fear, because we don't want to travel for the risk of getting stuck somewhere, of being in a 14-day lockdown at some other place that you would have been home 10 days ago before you're out of lockdown. We've chosen not to travel. And then overt censorship, mostly by private organizations that we have entrusted our ability and our communication channels to. Those private institutions have decided what is truth and what is not truth, not because it is factual or not factual, but because it challenges a narrative, a way of thinking, the ability to imagine an outcome beyond what's on the other side of that bridge enshrouded in fog. The suspension of rights, what might likely be the right to protect your body from invasive procedures, the right to travel, the right to talk, many, many rights. And some of those I don't think we've begun to see this full suspension of just yet. The NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, and ownership of private assets. Those were signed in and have been in place. And if they get renewed annually, biannually, or on a different interval, that there have been some rather draconian ones in place for 10, 12 years now. And I think the bigger reveal, the one that intrigues me, but then may also cause the greatest amount of cognitive dissonance amongst the larger population, is simply the reveal of who pulls the strings. It's something that innately we have all wanted to know. Some have just surrendered it to a higher power. Others can't see beyond what the television shows us, those pictures, those politicians on the screen. But we all know that's not the be-all, end-all of the power structure of this planet. It goes much deeper, much, much deeper. First, they came for the socialists, and I didn't speak out because I wasn't a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I didn't speak out because I wasn't a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I didn't speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. Together, looking out for each one of us because they want us divided. And a house divided, as we have been told for generations, cannot survive. A house divided will fall. And sometimes when things are falling apart, they may actually be falling into place. And this comes back to opportunity. And luck favors those prepared. And part of this process, this exercise of COVID, this exercise of 2020, this exercise of what will likely be a financial reset, because we can't go back to the way it was. The system won't sustain it. It can't support what has been created inside this system. So that is another one of the big, big financial resets that is happening, is the financial one. And that may be the ultimate reason why COVID being the dry run. What will the people accept? The people in the UK accepting a different set of restrictions than the French or the Belgians or the Swedes or the Germans or the Egyptians, the Saudis, the Mexicans and the Americans. All of us, every culture has its limit. And that limit has to be found before you need to restrict the people, so you can restrict them inside of what they'll accept, and then they'll willingly cross that bridge to that foggy destination on the other side. So it's about our attitude. Could the circumstances surrounding us now be a result of concepts that we've held about each other? And this, in my eyes, goes to the division that we have allowed to be fostered between us. Because the last thing the powers that be want is us united. They thrive on dissension. They thrive on anger. They thrive on us in fear, but united, imagining a future out of their hands scares the crap out of them. And what concept of ourselves have we already surrendered to the media and the narrative? So the Constitution was just a concept, an ideal, when the overreach of the royals 250 years ago became too much. And the brightest minds, even though they may not have got along to get this done. And I know Americans, we have far, far more in common, even though we may disagree on points of information, points of view. But in time, as this scenario completely plays itself out, we will realize that the power was in our hands all along, from beginning to end, that we can cut the strings, that we can regain our freedom, issue our own money, and create our own legal system outside of their reach, leaving admiralty law and going back to common law, going to digital currencies, teaching our children outside of that system. There are ways to make the forefathers, the founding of this nation, their dreams, to make it real once again. The Constitution is not a document for the government to restrain the people. It is an instrument for the people to restrain the government. And with the Constitution even in place, it's gotten to the point that there are so many other laws which reach right around that Constitution, limiting every single aspect of our life with something as simple as a license. A license. The things that you have to have a license for, the simple going out and getting a meal, fishing. And there's so many things that we have to have licenses for that we didn't when the forefathers founded this country. It is always better to have no ideas than false ones, to believe nothing than to believe what is wrong. This might take a little bit of time. And a lot of us will realize that as we have gone through our lives and even looking at the world around us today, that there are things that we have accepted as being true which are not. And we will all be faced with points where cognitive dissonance, where opportunities to enlarge our point of view, to incorporate the greater vision of what's actually happening into our worldview so that we can, from that point onward, make correct decisions, make accurate decisions that are better for generations to come, rather than just satisfying an immediate need. And we're absolutely to the point where we need local and immediate safety, but we cannot let that be at the cost of our future. I'm just saying God has a perfect plan for us, and he never does it all at once, just step by step, because he wants to teach us to walk by faith than by sight. Because as we saw earlier, from the bottom down here at the bottom, we have a very, very difficult time seeing all the moving parts, seeing all of the aspects of what is happening play themselves out for the betterment of all involved. It might and probably will be painful for some. I think that's just kind of a given. But all change comes from actively seeing an expanded point of view, and as does all tolerance, understanding, and compassion. Because I think the powers that be, the greater powers that be, enjoys watching us evolve. Outside of that, what would be the point of creation, if not to then come into our own and evolve to the point where we can mirror and become that aspect of the Creator itself? And that's the beauty of, I think, the opportunity. I know the opportunity that we're about to walk into as we wind up or head headlong into this month of October. That these great, great challenges that lie just ahead of us that are going to require a lot of work will require us to incorporate the biggest point of view that we can possibly muster. I've got two other shows specifically here on Metadime. Coffee Break Show with Vicki Helm. Runs Monday through Friday at 11 Mountain. Unlocked with Tracy Wilson, dealing with businesses and integrating some of those processes is her stint in Unlocked. And that also at this time at 6 o'clock Mountain. And then, of course, my show Monday and Wednesdays. Yes, good to see you guys over on here. Do this. That's the best attitude to have. Some divine power has the perfect plan. And we just have to walk through it, Rob. And this is our challenge, knowing that what is coming may not be easy, but it is the best thing for us to end this. Uh, End it temporarily, end it permanently. I don't know that we get 1,000 years of bliss like that have been promised by some, but it's going to be a challenge. Yeah, greetings from the UK. Good to see you on there. The UK, you guys, you're having a fascinating fall as it's unfolding over there, as is Australia. All right, I'll catch you next Monday with another perspective. In the meanwhile, we'll anticipate the arrival of Hurricane Delta ashore in Louisiana at some point Friday. All right, have a great night, everybody, and thanks for stopping by in the meantime.